everyone. Welcome to the January 18, 2022 ASTAC meeting. I'm Alex Warner, who will be covering for Megan as the chair in this meeting. I would now like to call the meeting to order. Claire, can you please provide a quick reminder on how the procedures will work?
Brian, do you want to go ahead with the...
Oh, shoot. I don't have it handy. Do you have it?
Do you want me to read it?
I can read it if you'd like. Oh, okay. Alex, did you want to read it?
Oh, it's up to you. Ask interpreters to introduce themselves and walk through how to access interpretation services for today's meeting. Do we have interpreters today?
You do. Thank you very much. This is Carlos, your interpreter. We'll start with the instructions in Spanish and I will be back with the instructions in English. Buenos días, está proporcionando servicio de interpretación simultánea para esta sesión. Para hacer uso del mismo, solo es necesario desplazarse a la barra de controles de Zoom en la parte inferior de su pantalla, hacer clic en el icono de interpretación, parece un globo terráqueo, y seleccionar Spanish o español. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom en celular, tableta, etcétera, presione primero los puntos suspensivos, luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Por último, si no desea escuchar el audio original en inglés en el fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Audio o silenciar audio original. Once again, interpretation is being provided to and from Spanish. To take advantage of the service, please scroll down to the bottom of the Zoom screen where the meeting controls are. Click on the interpretation icon. It looks like a little world, and then select English as your language. If you are joining through the Zoom mobile app on a cell phone, tablet, or other mobile device, first press the ellipsis, the three dots, then interpretation, and then choose your language. Finally, click on Mute Original Audio to not hear the original Spanish low in the background. Gracias and thank you.
Thank you. The meeting is being recorded. How to vote, speak, or provide comments instructions. ASTAC members, if you would like to speak or provide comment, notify staff by clicking your camera on, raising your hand. Please make sure to unmute your microphone to speak. If you are not speaking, please make sure that your microphone is muted and that your camera is off. For clarity of the record, please identify yourself each time you speak. Please only use the chat box if you are having technical difficulties. For voting, by state law, all votes in teleconference meeting must be by roll call. After there has been a motion and a second, the chair will call for the vote of each member individually. And that member will be unmuted to vote. At the conclusion of voting, the chair will announce the result. For members of the public who are virtually attending the meeting may comment by raising their hands in Zoom. To do so, click on the raise hand icon at the bottom of the toolbar. If you are participating by phone, please press *9 to raise your hand. When the chair recognizes you, you will be unmuted by staff and can make your comment. For every agenda item, the chair must request public comments, and this must be stated clearly on the record. We need to state that either they are not for the record or that we have public comments. For items with an action, the clerk performs roll call vote. The chair will ask the motion and the second recognized members. The members themselves must speak for the record. Lastly, please speak at normal pace so that Carlos can adequately interpret all the information. Thank you, and please let me know if you have any questions. Welcome and introductions. I would like to take this opportunity for our working group members to introduce themselves and the area of the region they serve, so the public joining us today are aware. Now, Are we doing introductions, Ashley?
If we have anybody new, we can do introductions, but I didn't see anybody. Is there anybody new who would like to introduce themselves? Mary, go ahead.
Hey, I'm Mary Balderrama, and I am a new transit planner for NCTD, so North County Transit District. Thank you.
Welcome, Mary. We can move on to item number 2, approval of the meeting minutes. Do we have a motion for approval of the September 21st meeting minutes?
This is Wayne Landon, and I make a motion to accept those minutes.
Thank you, Wayne. Do we have a second?
This is Clyde Kohler. I second the motion.
Great, thank you. Shauna, will you please pull up the voting list for the item number 2 meeting minutes, and we'll take a roll call vote.
Here we go.
Can't see it.
1 second, I'm trying to share. Do you guys see it now?
Well, it's small.
Yeah, go ahead and zoom in, please.
Is this good?
Not really.
Is that all right, or should we go in more?
More, please.
Is this all right? Still more?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just you have some persons like myself that are a little bit more sight challenged, so
No problem. Is this all right?
I can read it. Now, is there anybody else who would like to give any feedback?
I can see it, but I will say that the typing, the names are very small font, and the check marks are just now showing up.
Okay, maybe we can change this in the future.
And the other thing is that if it's going to be big like that, you're going to have to scroll it because it's certainly not going to fit
Yeah,
page.
And you do have room on your page to expand.
okay. Are we good to take the minutes, or that's what we're voting on, right? Minutes?
Yeah, let's take
Okay.
the vote. I'll say Carrie. I don't think is here. I think the next would be Clyde Kohler.
Yes, I seconded the motion.
Okay. Lori Seagram.
I second the motion.
Wait. Okay.
Sharon Beckus.
Approve.
Catherine Manus looks to not be here. Wayne Landon.
Yes.
David Jackson.
So Ashley, Wayne, only Wayne, one of Wayne or David will vote.
Oh, okay.
Same as Alex, weirdly. So yeah, only
Got it.
3 people can vote. Yeah, gotcha, on that group.
Okay. And moving down, do we have anyone that has shown up last minute from Traveler's Aid? Marcy or Adriana? No, okay. And then San Diego Center for the Blind, Ilse?
Approve.
All right. And then the Home of Guiding Hands, Todd Shaw?
Approve.
And the Arc of San Diego, Anthony DeSalas?
Yes.
And Elder Help, Elizabeth Wagner?
Yes.
Thank you. And then we have from Fact Alley.
Yes.
Thank you. And then from MTS, Carla or Jay.
Jay, yes.
Thank you. And then from NCTD, Mary and Robert.
Yes.
Those are separate votes, Ashley.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. That approved.
No, hang on. You didn't get the separate votes for NCTD. I don't know if I heard Robert.
Oh. Is Robert there? Is he able to speak?
Can you hear me?
And I don't think.
Oh.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Yes.
Thank you.
And Ashley, sorry, Catherine Manis just joined us. So if you want to go back up and get her vote for the minutes, if you're here, Catherine.
Yes, thank you. You have my vote for the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. And that passes. Okay, moving on to item number 3, public comments. Do we have any public comments that are non-agenda items?
Karen Beckus?
Yeah, Sharon.
Yes, hi. I've been working in the last 2 weeks with an issue with MTS and mask on public transit. The website for MTS indicates that masks, according to TSA, are required. So there's a person that gets on the buses that refuses to wear the mask. And he's been on several buses that I've been on. So I've reported it, and the feedback that I get back from MTS through customer service is that it is, let me use the words that they're saying. They're using the words that it's suggested. The operator can say it's suggested that you wear it, but it's not, they don't enforce it. And that's a problem. That's a problem for me as a rider, because the drivers have a shield around them, but us passengers in these closed buses where the windows don't open are subject to that problem. So by indicating back to me that it is only MTS's suggestion that they wear it, not required, yet the website and TSA say it's required on transit. So I have a problem with that. And I wanted to know, what are we supposed to do about that issue? That's it.
Thank you. Heidi?
Heidi, we see your hand up, but I'm not sure if you're unmuted.
Oh, finally, sorry. I couldn't
Hey,
get
Clyde.
okay, sorry. This is Clyde Kohler. This is NCTD issue. I'm talking about the similar issue as Sharon. I'm seeing passengers who get on the bus with a mask, move past the driver towards the wherever, and let their mask slide down so they're not masking anything. I'm also very uncomfortable with that, and I've actually curtailed my riding on the buses because of that. I'm having to be very careful. And the other thing is that I'm noticing, and this may be a staffing issue, a driver issue, but some of the buses, I ride the 305 and I think it's the 353, I'm not sure which, that goes up to Nordal. And the Nordal bus was extremely far off of its schedule, and the 305 is somewhat off of its schedule. So it's very noticeable. But I'm most concerned about the masks. Thank you.
Hi, John, it's Catherine. Hi there. No Peggy today. Right.
I muted that. And I'm trying to, Alex, go ahead and take.
I'm in a meeting right now, but I'll print today's.
Sorry. I think I got her. Alex, feel free to go ahead.
Now, is that all the comments from the working groups that we have? Is there anyone raising their hands or that would like to speak from the working groups?
Get my computer to work here.
Okay, we don't seem to have anyone. Do we have any comments from the public, clerk?
I see no hands raised.
Moving on then to the next item. Item number 3, members of the public comments. Members of the public shall have the opportunity to address the working group on any issues within the jurisdiction of SANDAG that is not on the agenda. Do we have any public comments?
No, we can move on to item 4.
Okay. Item 4, Ramon will give an overview of the status of parking at the Claremont Drive trolley station. Is Ramon ready?
Ramon is ready. Ashley, were you gonna, there you go. Thank you. So good morning, members of the STAC. My name is Ramon Ruelas and I'm the Midcoast Corridor Director. I'm joined today by 2 of my colleagues, Ms. Annie Smitty, who's the Project Counsel, and Mr. Greg Gastelum, who's our Deputy Project Director of Capital Management, Design, and Administration. Annie and Greg are joining me today to assist in filling in any gaps in my presentation and in providing any responses to questions you might have. Next slide, please. So before we get too far with our presentation, I wanted to express our team's appreciation for the members of this council who took the time to join us for a field review of the project and provide feedback on matters of accessibility. And I believe that happened just prior to when we started revenue service. We are here today to kind of provide you with a brief update on the project and more specifically on the status of parking for the Claremont station. We want to share our thoughts on how to mitigate for the lack of parking at this location, but even more importantly, to look at your guidance and expertise to determine how best we can support the needs of persons with disabilities until a permanent parking facility is available for use at this location. Next slide, please. So the Claremont Drive trolley station is just one of 9 new stations along the Midcoast extension of the UC San Diego Blue Line trolley. SANDAG began construction for the Midcoast trolley extension in fall of 2016. This 11-mile trolley extension opened for service on November 21st, 2021, on time and on budget. Now, the terms of our agreement with the FTA, who is our funding partner on the project, included providing 150 transit parking spaces, at the Claremont Drive trolley station. Next slide, please. So SANDAG is committed to making transit accessible to all. We recognize that many members of the ADA community rely on transit to get to places they need to go. The Midcoast trolley extension increased the trolley system by approximately 20%. It serves and provides added transit options to major activity centers such as Old Town, Mission Bay, UC San Diego, and multiple healthcare facilities, in addition to University Town Center. Now, since opening, we found that travel times are much better than what we had originally estimated. It would take a rider approximately 25 minutes to get to UTC from Old Town, 29 minutes to get from the Santa Fe station downtown to UC San Diego, 65 minutes from East Street and Chula Vista to UTC, and finally 83 minutes for a 1-seat ride from the US-Mexico border to UC San Diego. Next slide. So now moving on to the matter of parking at the Claremont station. As I mentioned before, the terms of our agreement with our funding partner included 150 parking spaces at this location. SANDAG had entered into an agreement with the owner and developer of the lot across the station to provide these transit parking spaces. The developer has shared their intent to begin developing this site early this year. Unfortunately, at this time, we can't say when the developer will have the transit parking in place. Now, we understand that delays in completing parking inconveniences the community, and even more so persons with disabilities, from being able to access that trolley station with ease. Next slide, please. Now, with some initial uncertainty of when the developer would start construction, we had previously developed an initial plan that would accommodate 150 transit spaces soon. But with the developer's intent to begin during the first half of this year, we had to put that plan aside. Next slide, please. Oh, I just wanted to show that illustrated where the location is of that site. Yeah, next slide. So presently, we're evaluating 2 locations for interim parking at the station. A pull-out area that's located directly across the street from the station on Marina Boulevard, which is outlined in the photograph that you see right there. Next slide, please. And another location is an offsite at an SDG&E lot that's located on Marina Boulevard, just south of Ingolf, which is less than 1 block away from the station. And you can see that outlined in this photograph as well. Next slide, please. And this just is a different shot taken from the west, look in where you can see the 2 locations that we've identified as potential sites for ADA parking. Next slide, please. So additionally, there are some accessible parking spaces that are available at the nearby Tecolote and Balboa trolley stations. The Tecolote station has 10 accessible parking spaces and it's just 1.5 miles south of the Claremont station. Next slide, please. The Balboa station has 9 accessible parking spaces and is just 1.2 miles north of the Claremont station. Now, we are collaborating with MTS to monitor the use of these spaces to determine if they could suffice as an interim solution. Now, there are still some obstacles we would need to overcome to implement either of the other 2 locations nearest the Claremont station. So we welcome your ideas for other solutions beyond what we've already shared. Next slide, please. So that concludes our presentation for today. And with that, we welcome any questions and would welcome any input on what we're doing at this time. Thank you. Alex, you have your hand raised. I wasn't sure if you're the chair, I guess, today, so you can go ahead and speak when you like.
Yes. How many spaces were you planning to do on the street?
So I think well, it's not that we're planning, so we're still looking at them. We don't even know if that's a viable option. We're just checking. We would have to make some modifications to the improvements that we've already done at that location. But I think our preliminary information that we got says that we can accommodate maybe up to, and I'm looking at my notes here, 5 spaces at that location on Marina. I will say that it does create some challenges, that specific location, because traffic on Marina, the speed limit there is 45 miles an hour. So it's unlikely that we could accommodate spaces for maybe a wheelchair space at that location. I'm not exactly sure. So like I said, we're still looking at that, and I'm not sure that we've totally vetted that out.
Thank you.
Sure. Sharon, I see your hand is raised.
My question is, I know I went on opening day for the trolley stations, all the different trolley stations, and all the trolleys stations themselves were done. But once you left the trolley station, that's where things broke down. Like, for example, the parking here or at the VA going through the construction, or at UCSD. So the problems was the trolley was done, but not the getting off of the trolley to your next destination wasn't completed. Wasn't that part of the original package when designing the trolley, that parking being done at the same time?
So thank you for your question. That is a good question. And one thing that the trolley has done, it has spurred a fair amount of development in the properties immediately adjacent to where our stations are located. The Claremont site, I mean, it's going to be a transit-oriented development that the developer is going to put at that location. So they're looking to go ahead and put something in place that will align very well with the intent of trying to get people to use transit. The university at UCSD, they have expanded the amount of work that they were initially planning to do immediately adjacent to the station. So those projects are unique and specific to those locations. And so they were not necessarily directly associated with the work we were doing, but they're the work that they are doing themselves. At VA, the VA had always had plans to make improvements to their facilities, and the timing of their construction was such that it didn't necessarily start until close to when we were ready to open the facility. But they had always had plans to make improvements at that location. And again, that is not necessarily associated or directly related to the work that we're doing, and it's nothing that we're involved in. It's purely a VA capital improvement that they're doing themselves.
How about the skywalk? How about the skywalk at Scripps Memorial Hospital?
At Scripps, so the sidewalk at that location, I'd have to, you'd have to be a little bit more specific than that.
Yeah, there's a skywalk. When you get off the trolley,
I know you're
there was
talking
supposed to be a skywalk that would allow you to cross the street, so you would not be in traffic. You would be not down below on the street level. You'd be up above skywalk, go into an elevator and go down that way. That's closed, not
well,
open. It's going to be months.
No, actually, at that location, we were very fortunate, right, in not being significantly affected due to supply chain issues. But, when the contractor was putting in the wire mesh for fall protection at that location, they found that the height of what the material they had ordered was too short. So they had to go back and reorder the material. And that prevented them from being able to open that skyway or that walkway or that pedestrian walkway over Boyd at the time we opened the station. I will say that it is open now. So they have installed the new wire mesh. It was previously closed, but access across Boyd to Preuss School and to Scripps is now open.
Great, thank you.
Sure. And I see somebody else has their hand up. I'm not exactly sure who that is.
Clyde, yeah. Hi, again. I kind of got stuck on that lot that's supposed to be developed by a private developer. I don't know if that's the usual conduct. I mean, first of all, why are we using a private developer? Secondly, more importantly, because it's a private developer, I immediately wondered if they were going to charge for parking. That's my question. Thank you.
So it wouldn't necessarily be the private developer that would charge for parking. Part of our agreement with them is that they provide the parking spaces, 150 to be specific, at that location. If the parking was going to be charged for, that would be a matter that is left up to MTS when the time comes. But as far as I know, it's nothing that the developer will impose upon the people who want to use those spaces.
Thank you.
So again, we came here today really to get any input or feedback. I'd be kind of curious to find out what the council's thoughts are about using the other two stations until the permanent parking is put at Claremont. Or if you guys have any other thoughts or ideas of maybe some other locations that we might be able to take advantage. We're certainly willing to listen. We want to listen, and if possible, if it seems reasonable that for us to be able to accommodate that, we certainly would like to consider that and do that too. In the meantime, we're gonna continue to look at those two sites and see if they're even viable options. And I'd like to be able to come back to you guys and share, any progress that we're making on that.
Ramon, this is Alex again. Have you considered any of these side streets to add some parking?
So we looked at Ingulf. If you're familiar with that area, it is relatively tight. I will say that parking in that community is relatively tight. There isn't a whole lot of places that I would consider close that could be made or converted to ADA accessible parking on the street.
I would just like to add that we do have our designers looking at, all options. There are hills in this location, so it is somewhat challenging.
Will you be coming back on the next meeting with your final report on the parking?
Well, I think, as we make progress in vetting through those two sites that we're looking into, we welcome the opportunity to come back and share.
Do you have that on the website under Keep San Diego Moving? Do you have your construction updates there?
So not at that. Well, we do have a website that's project specific, and I believe Gia, communications person, is on. I'm not sure if she's a panelist, but I do believe that we provide updates on that site on the project. Yes.
So the parking could be added there, correct?
Yes, I think that's
Okay.
a good idea. Thank you.
We don't have any other comments. We can move on the next item.
Great, thank you.
Moving on the next item, we have item number 5, information on the STGP Cycle 11 supplemental call for projects. And we have Zachary will be presenting.
Yes, good morning, Vice Chair and members of the STAC. My name is Zachary Rivera, and I serve as one of the project managers of the SANDAG Specialized Transportation Grant Program, or STGP. For those that don't know me, I assisted with clerking the STAC meetings and developing meeting minutes about 2 years ago. So it is definitely good to be back with you. I'm joined by Ben Gembler, a new project manager who is responsible for the new Access for All grant program at SANDAG. Today, we are going to present an overview of these grant programs, the upcoming calls for projects, and ways for the STAC to provide input. Next slide, please. Many of you are likely familiar with the STGP, but for those of you that are not, let me provide a brief overview. The STGP is one of several competitive grant programs administered by SANDAG. Started in 2006, it is comprised of the Federal Transit Administration Section 5310 program and the Transnet Senior Mini Grant Program. Taken together, the STGP seeks to improve mobility for seniors and individuals with disabilities when other transportation options, such as conventional transit, are unavailable or inappropriate. This is accomplished by removing barriers to transportation services, expanding transportation mobility options, and providing transportation services that meet the special needs of seniors and individuals with disabilities. STGP projects are divided into 3 project types: capital, mobility management, and operating. Capital projects consist of the purchase of accessible vehicles, equipment, support software, as well as the acquisition of contracted transportation service. Mobility management projects are those that improve coordination among public transportation and other transportation service providers to enhance or expand specialized transportation services. Examples of this include informational and referral services, as well as travel training programs. And then lastly, operating projects consist of activities to operate, maintain, and manage a specialized transportation service. So in addition to the STGP, SANDAG is launching a new grant program, which Ben will discuss next.
Thanks, Zach. Next slide, please. Good morning, everybody. I have recently started here at SANDAG to spearhead the development and implementation of our Access for All grant program, which will enhance on-demand transportation for those with disabilities in the San Diego region. This program came into being after the passage of Senate Bill 1376 and is administered by the California Public Utilities Commission. We will be acting as the local access fund administrator that will be developing the program at the local level, issuing a call for projects, awarding funding to access providers, and administering the program. Now, the goal of Access for All is to provide an on-demand transportation network provider service to individuals with disabilities who need wheelchair accessible vehicles to reach work, to reach medical appointments, and other types of destinations in the region. The program is funded by a 10-cent fee on each transportation network provider ride, such as an Uber or Lyft in California, which is then used to fund programs run by local access providers. Now, we'll be providing more information as we develop our call for projects, which Zach will talk a little bit about. Next slide, please.
Great. So SANDAG allocates STGP and AFA funding through a competitive process, also known as a call for projects. At the beginning stage of the call for project development, staff gathers input from stakeholders on regional needs and program requirements. Staff then considers public input received when drafting program requirements and evaluation criteria used to score proposed projects. Staff then presents a draft evaluation criteria to SANDAG policy advisory committees for recommendation to the SANDAG Board of Directors. Upon approval of the SANDAG Board, the call for projects is released, opening a 90-day application window. At the end of the application window, staff screens proposed projects for eligibility, forwards eligible projects to external evaluators to score, and develops project rankings based on the evaluator's scores. The call for projects culminates in the SANDAG Board approval of the proposed project rankings and funding awards. Staff then works with successful applicants to execute one or more grant agreements and start each successful project. So SANDAG has 3 upcoming calls for projects for specialized transportation services in the region, which we'll discuss in the next slides. As a result of the STGP Cycle 11 call for projects, which was in 2021, there were fewer requests for Section 5310 funds than available funding. Thus, SANDAG anticipates releasing a Cycle 11 supplemental call for projects to make about $200,000 available for Section 5310 traditional projects, which are capital and mobility management projects. 1 year of funding will be released through the supplemental call for projects. Additionally, the evaluation criteria approved by the SANDAG Board for the STGP Cycle 11 call for projects will be used for this supplemental call for projects. And as far as the timeline goes, SANDAG anticipates releasing the Cycle 11 supplemental call this month with applications due in April. Project rankings and proposed funding awards are slated to be considered by the SANDAG Board in June. The deadline for SANDAG to obligate funding with the Federal Transit Administration is September 30th, 2022. Thereafter, SANAG will then execute grant agreements and work with grantees to start their projects at that time. This is important for all of those on the call or those prospective applicants that SANAG is now publishing all grant solicitations on BidNet Direct, SANDAG's online vendor portal. Like I said, prospective applicants are encouraged to register as a vendor on BidNet Direct to receive real-time notifications, access call for projects application materials, and participate in the call for projects once it is released. And if you're wondering how to do that, I would encourage you to access www.sandag.org/grants. That's sandag.org/grants for information on BidNet Direct. And finally, more information on this supplemental call for projects will be provided on the STGP webpage, including any timeline changes. Next slide, please. The second call for projects is the much larger STGP Cycle 12 call for projects. Through this call, SANDAG anticipates releasing as much as $8 million in Section 5310 and senior mini grant funding to support capital, mobility management, and operating projects. Additionally, through this call, 2 years of funding will be allocated. Right now, we're at the very beginning stages of the STGP Cycle 12 call for projects. Between now and June, staff will gather public input, consider it for any changes to program requirements and Cycle 11 evaluation criteria, and propose the Cycle 12 evaluation criteria to the Transnet Independent Taxpayer Oversight Committee and SANDAG Transportation Committee for recommendation to the SANDAG Board. Staff anticipates releasing the Cycle 12 call for projects in early July and closing the application window in late September. Between October and January, staff eligibility reviews will be conducted, eligible projects will be scored, and proposed project rankings will be developed. And out of that, draft funding awards are then anticipated to be considered in February 2023. And senior mini grant projects would start no sooner than July 1st, 2023, and Section 5310 projects would start no sooner than October 1st, 2023. In later slides, we'll discuss how to provide initial input, but let me turn it over to Ben to discuss SANDAG's first call for projects for the Access for All program.
Thanks, Zach. So this will be Cycle 1 for the Access for All call for projects. We're just getting started with the initial development of this. We're anticipating our funding for this cycle to be $2.5 million. Our anticipated timeline will be opening the call for projects this spring, and program services will begin on July 1st, 2022.
And
so at this point,
Ben, if we can move, maybe advance the slide once.
Oh, sorry.
There we go.
I didn't notice. Apologies. So yeah, so as you can see on the slide, like I said, we have $2.5 million we're anticipating in our funding cycle. We're looking at getting this program started July 1st. Program services will begin then. So what we're looking to do today is we're really looking to inform the development of the call for projects by getting input from the community, including STEC, the Council on Access and Mobility. We're really excited to hear about ideas and concerns and suggestions that you can provide to help our initial development of this really new and exciting program for the region. So now Zach will talk some more about the public input process and some next steps here. Next slide.
Great. So before I talk next steps, let me just recap the call for projects. There are 3 upcoming SANDAG calls for projects related to specialized transportation And those are summarized in attachment 2 of the staff report. The first is the Cycle 11 supplemental call for projects through this specialized transportation grant program. $200,000 is being made available for proposed projects using the Cycle 11 evaluation criteria. The second is the Cycle 12 call for projects, which is also through the specialized transportation grant program. While the funding amount is still being determined, it could be as high as $8 million. We're in the beginning stages of the Cycle 12 call for projects as we look for input on possible changes to the evaluation criteria and program requirements. And then lastly, the third is the Cycle 1 call for projects through the Access for All program, a new grant program at SANDAG. We seek input on the development of this call for projects as well. Next slide, please. So to prepare for the release of the STGP Cycle 12 and Access for All Cycle 1 calls for projects, SANDAG invites the STAC and other specialized transportation stakeholders to provide input. We welcome your comments following the conclusion of this presentation. Additionally, other ways to provide input include completing an outreach survey geared towards riders, providers, and other stakeholders that will be available on the STGP webpage, emailing comments to grantsdistribution@sandag.org. That's grantsdistribution@sandag.org. You can also mail comments to SANDAG. You can also attend SANDAG policy advisory committees, so the ITALC, Independent Taxpayer Oversight Committee, or the Transportation Committee, where evaluation criteria and program requirements will be presented. And we ask that you please provide initial input by February 11th so that staff can consider it when initially developing these call for projects. And as I mentioned before, SANDAG highly encourages prospective applicants to register their organizations in BidNet Direct, which is the online portal SANDAG will use to post application materials. And as far as next steps, staff anticipates returning to the STAC in March to discuss the input received and provide an update on the developments. This concludes our presentation. We welcome any questions you may have. We are also looking for feedback from the STAC, especially on program requirements and draft evaluation criteria. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zachary. If any members would like to offer any comments or questions, please either turn on your camera or raise your hand at this time. Is there any comments or questions from the members?
And I guess I will say, if there aren't any, I'll put the email address for grants distribution in the chat. So if you think of something after the presentation, please feel free to email us your comments.
Is there any comments from the public? Clerk?
I see no hands.
If we don't have any questions, we'll be moving on to the next item. Item number 6. Thank you so much, Zachary and Benjamin, for your presentation. A lot of information that we need to check on. Item number 6, representatives from the Metropolitan Transit System and North County Transit District will provide an update on proposed services changes on any notable activity.
Jay, I don't know if you're on. Do you have any updates at MTS?
Sure. I didn't know who wanted to go first, so I was just waiting. MTS, like many industries, is striving to overcome staffing shortages right now. There are some route reductions that are coming up as part of our January schedule changes. That material is all gone out public. Take ones, I believe, went on the buses last week. So we are having to adjust our service levels. This is on fixed route. There are no changes on Trolley, and obviously Access is an on-demand service, so there are no changes there. For Access service, we did launch first of the year. Our Easy Access webpage allows individuals to do online scheduling, look at their trips, change their trips, cancel trips, and also see where their bus is on trips. Once that trip is due or within 30 minutes of arrival, they can follow the vehicle to the location. So we're very excited about the launch of that. Had several hundred people sign up for it in the first couple of days. So we're very excited about that rollout. Encourage Access users to utilize that web app. One of the big advantages is it allows individuals to schedule trips 24 hours a day, as opposed to calling and using the reservation phone lines, which are open significantly less hours each day than being able to access 24/7. So it provides a lot more convenience to our riders. And really that's about it. Struggling with COVID cases, like everyone in every industry is right now. And doing the best we can to provide safe, reliable transportation for fixed route, trolley, and paratransit to all of our users.
This is Robert with NCTD. I'm going to mirror what Jay was talking about. We're starting to experience a lot of shortages in our driver ranks as well. We haven't made cuts yet, but we are looking that if this continues, that we may have to reduce some of the headways on some of our fixed route buses. For paratransit, we've tried to rely on our taxi providers to pick up the slack for the shortages of drivers that we have, either due to just drivers quitting or due to COVID. The taxi providers are now starting to have the same issues. COVID's hit us pretty hard in all aspects of the operation. So the NCTD Planning Department is currently looking at headways on our breeze routes, and will be coming out in the next couple of weeks with any changes that they deem need to be made to accommodate our driver shortages. So we will keep everybody updated. You can find that information on our NCTD website. But as of right now, that's currently what's happening. We're kind of being held at the mercy of COVID and the shortage of drivers. Thank you.
Alex, I think you're,
Yes.
oh, you may be muted.
Yes, we have Elsa raising her hand.
Yes, hi, good morning. I had a question for MTS and the new web app. Can I don't know if I missed it, but can somebody pay for their rides using this app as well, or do they still need to call in or other options?
Currently, we are not accepting payments over the app or the web page, but they will be able to do that in phase 2, which we're in testing in. Individuals be able to preload an account, and then when they book trips and take trips, it would debit from that balance of an account that they establish. So yes, that is a service that is coming. It's just not ready right now. Whenever you're dealing with electronic banking, there's a lot of hurdles, state, federal, and others to jump through with our banking vendors and our software vendors. So we're hoping to be in testing in that in the next couple of months. What is coming actually, and I should have mentioned, is that what was launched was a website where individuals can go and do their trip bookings. We also are in testing for a mobile app for both Apple and Android devices, where individuals will have the same functionality as the website. And that we're in testing also and should be coming out in the next couple of months.
Thank you. Can the link for that be added to the chat, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
We also have Sharon as raising her hand. Sharon, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I'd like, if possible, Robert and Jay to address the issue of the mask. I do have information from that's on the CDC that it's been extended through March 18th. Does not say anything about suggested. It does say required. So I'd like to have that issue addressed by both of you. And then I did want to give feedback on the service cutbacks that Jay addressed. That's already occurred on November 21st. The same day that the trolley was opening is when you started cutting back services on the Route 30, I know for a fact. So now there's going to be more. And that's really a hardship because I don't have a cell phone. So when I'm at the bus stops, if there's not a bus coming for a half hour and I'm thinking it's coming in 15 minutes or whatever the time might be, that's a problem. So yes, I understand you have a driver shortage, but in the meantime, how do you determine what routes are being penalized, what customers are being penalized? So I like those questions addressed, and thank you.
We don't have any more questions for this item. We'll be moving on the next
Well,
item.
Alex, sorry. Sharon had a question. I don't know if Jay or Robert can take a minute to answer.
Sure.
Thanks,
MTS does enforce the mask policy. The enforcement is carried out by our road supervisors or our security force. Given the violence against transit drivers that has been occurring, especially heightened during the COVID pandemic, drivers have been assaulted, spit on, physically accosted, robbed, and there's even been reports of drivers killed in other agencies. To protect our driver's safety, the driver is there to inform the person of the COVID policy, not to enforce or become confrontational with the individuals who board the buses. If the individual does not don a mask, the driver notifies our dispatch and the proper authorities, and then someone is dispatched to intercept the bus en route and address the maskless issue with the individual while en route. We believe that the personal safety and physical safety of the drivers is paramount in this situation, and that is the policy that we've put in place to address this.
Well, Jay, I have feedback on that. I was on the at the Balboa Transit waiting for the Route 43, and a person who rides the buses regularly, according to customer service, boarded without a mask. The driver asked him to wear a mask. He refused to. The driver called dispatch. Nothing happened. Then another woman with her 5 physically challenged students arrived. The driver came outside and said, "Hey, do you want to board because he's not wearing a mask?" And we were scared. We were worried. So we said no. So he was told by dispatch to go ahead and take off. So that guy got a personal limousine ride in an MTS bus to his destination, and we were left there. That's not right. So dispatch is not sending anybody to security. They are not doing that, sir.
Well, they are, ma'am, and it doesn't mean that a driver or a road supervisor or security is going to be able to meet them within 2 minutes or 5 minutes. It all depends on the location of those personnel, when they are able to dispatch them to those locations to address the maskless individual. You have to also understand that California allows exceptions to the mask mandate under ADA regulations. So, and given, as you know, ADA, we're not allowed to inquire into details of that. So if an individual says they're exempt from the mask mandate, we have no ability to enforce that or question them beyond them stating they have an exemption or they qualify under an exemption to the mask policy. So yes, we are doing everything we can to provide the safest transportation we can for individuals while working within the regulations, the limitations that are placed on us in some of these aspects also.
Robert, your feedback too, please.
Yeah, we have the same policy as MTS, and just like Jay said, the safety and security of our drivers and the other people on board the vehicle are our main priority. We try to enforce it. We do the best we possibly can. If somebody refuses to wear a mask, we don't want to hold the bus up, and delay services for people who have to get to their destinations, doctor's appointments, etc. So we do notify a road supervisor based on the resources and where those road supervisors are currently at. It could take 10 minutes. It could take 45 minutes before that supervisor gets out to the bus to address it. So we are trying to manage it, but as you can imagine, it's a difficult situation to deal with. But we are trying to mandate that everybody wear a mask, and we're trying to make sure that the driver's not the one who is the police officer of that responsibility.
Brian, do we have any other comments or questions?
I don't see any hands raised. Thanks, Alex.
Next item, facilitating access to coordinated transportation update. The council.
Good morning. Thank you. This is Allie. FACT had their annual meeting on December 16th, and it was a successful celebration. Guest speakers included Mayor Catherine Blake Spear of Encinitas, Bill Sankey, Coronado City Council member, and Colleen Clemenson from Sandag. The annual report can be emailed out if STAC members would like to receive it, and I'll put our email address into the chat. FACT will host a virtual workshop on February 8th at the CAM meeting discussing insurance and vehicle leases. Several speakers will cover the insurance topic. Please let us know if you'd like to receive this agenda and participate. The final draft of the Code of Conduct policy for the San Diego region's specialized transportation program will be presented in an item at the March STAC meeting from members of the committee. That's it. Thank you.
Brian, would you check if there is any raised hands for public comments?
I'm not seeing any.
Moving on, the next item, a staff report.
Thanks, Alex. Really not much to report on Sandag's end. We're going through various audits, but those are all internal, either FTA or state audits. The regional plan was passed, obviously, a couple months ago, so our group's going to be working on implementing some of those things that are in the regional plan. Obviously, new funding and more funding is some of the biggest picture. So if you see any items on ballot measures or anything like that, perk your ears up, because it's not until we can get more funding in the region that we can do a lot of the great ideas that we want to do. But Hassan did asked staff to push on some social equity items out of the regional plan and implement them sooner than later. One of those is the social equity transit pilot item that I've been working on with our partners, and that's the free fares for youth under 19. We're working with MTS, NCTD, and other social equity partners on that. We're hoping to start that in March. There'll be more news for that coming out soon. We're also hoping to start some increased services on late night trips and weekend trips where there were those gaps for working folks in disadvantaged communities. But like you heard from Robert and Jay, staffing shortages may have throw kind of a wrench in that. So there'll be more news on that in the coming months. We really hope that we can get out of COVID here, get back to some semblance of normalcy, and start increasing transit services in the near future, and then do some of our extra increased services on in our disadvantaged communities. So there'll be some news probably in about a month on that free fare and the increased services. And once we get going on that, we'll be working with our CBOs to do a lot of education and outreach on that. So that's kind of exciting. And then we're also looking to get more funding to do some planning studies to implement some new rapid routes in the near future, blue line and purple line feasibility studies, and also a restroom facility study to try to understand, how many more restrooms we could get out there and what that would cost and what kind of impact that would have on the transit agency's budgets and what types of funding it would take to make something like that a reality. Because we do realize that a lot of these things have social equity impacts for low income, minority, persons with disabilities, a lot of folks. So beyond that, I don't know, Ashley or Shauna, Zach, do we have any other updates?
No, I think you got them all.
Thank you. With that, Alex, I'll turn it over to you.
That completes our items for today. So last item, thank you for making the time today. The next meeting is scheduled for March 15, 2022. At 10 a.m.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good 2 weeks, months.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.